Hello. So we are going to be doing Memories of Childhood today. This chapter has two excerpts from autobiographies by Zitlasa and Bama. So today's task is the first portion, cutting off my long hair. All right. Now, a couple of things. First, childhood. Childhood is that initial phase of growth where, in all aspects of our life, energies are developed, personalities are formed, opinions are made, and this is the first positive spark. You're going through childhood, and what your experiences are, you're a collection of those experiences when you become older. And as you reflect, now if you're writing, say, your autobiography, what is an autobiography? I'm sure all of you know, when you're writing your own life experience through your own hand. When you do that, things which have left a big impact will find a place. Now we are looking at two women from two different parts of the world, one a Native American woman and the other one a Tamil, a South Indian author. Both of these women faced oppression. They belong to marginalized communities. What are marginalized? Those which are away from the mainstream society. So they belong to marginalized communities, and their impressions that were formed as they were growing up through the experiences that they have had. Okay, so that's why it's called, the title itself is Memories of Childhood. All right, so this unit presents autobiographical episodes from lives of two women from marginalized communities. Like I said, those which are away from the mainstream, they're not amalgamated in the mainstream society, right? And then they look back and reflect on their relationship with the mainstream culture, like how were they treated and how was that in respect to the mainstream culture. First part of the story is by an American Indian woman born in the late 19th century. To be exact, Zitlasa was born in 1876 and she passed away in 1938 at the age of 61. Zitlasa was her pen name. The name under which she wrote, and in native Indian tongue, it means red bird. She was a musician, she was a writer, she was an activist. She was actively fighting for her rights as Native American. Who are Native Americans? When Christopher Columbus reached America, the people who were already there. They also called Indians because Columbus was looking for India. So those Native American people were marginalized community. They suffered a lot of discrimination. They fought for their rights. Zitlasa, one of those activists. So now there are two things clubbed together. One, she is already to a marginalized, she belongs to a marginalized community. Two, she's a woman. Three, the time period, late 19th century, when women's rights were not so evolved. So there are a lot of things which are oppressing you. All right. So her name, her married name, this is not even her birth name, but her married name was Gertrude Simmons Bonin, 1876. She was born, extraordinarily talented, educated Native American woman, struggled and triumphed in a time when severe prejudice prevailed towards Native American culture and women. So she struggled and she won. She won in a time period when there was prejudice against Native Americans and obviously, like I said, women. Right? What is prejudice? Prejudice is a preconceived idea or notion. I already have in my mind a previous idea of how a Native American should be, and so therefore, by dint of that image that I have in my mind, how I should behave with them. I could be wrong, but it's an idea which is in my head. So that prejudice works against you, obviously. That's why the novel Pride and Prejudice, both fallacies of human nature, pride and prejudice, and how that novel then explores it, how both these conditions made the protagonists what they were and what they went through. These are both vices, these are both negative qualities. So coming back to Gertrude Bonin, she is working against two parallels. One, she belongs to marginalized community. Two, she is a woman. So what she faced and fought against, and of course she triumphed, means she won. As a writer, she adopted this pen name Zitlasa, which, like I said, means red bird. And in 1900, she began publishing articles criticizing the Carlisle Indian School. Her works criticized dogma. Now, what does the word dogma means? Dogma means that I am a figure of authority. I have given you a set of principles, and I tell you that you cannot say anything against these. I have decided these. These are the rule of law. Right, wrong, whatever, you have to accept. So many of the activists, many of the people, they used to obviously voice their opinion against dogmas. Who is this? Any figure of authority, if I'm going to give you a set of principles, then I'm going to tell you that यही है, आपको यही करना है. You like it, you don't like it, this is it. It's not debatable. So it's very much against the principles of democracy. So she fought against that, she criticized that. And of course, her life as a Native American woman, it was dedicated against the evils of oppression. So I'll take a Bama in the next session. We are coming to the first part, that is The Cutting of My Long Hair by Zitlasa, which means red bird in Native Indian language. So the first paragraph, she's talking about, now the context, I'll just give you the context. Her elder brother had been taken away to boarding school. These were boarding schools by missionaries. So they are going to now modulate youngsters into their way of thinking. Okay, now as a young girl, she very much wanted to go to that boarding school because she had these fantastic ideas कि पता नहीं वहाँ पे क्या experience होगा, and even the boarding school used to advertise itself as a land full of beautiful fields of red apples. They'll just go out, pluck those red apples, and there are long train rides, and it's beautiful. And her brother had already gone, and she really wanted to go. So she sort of, coaxed her mother to send her. Now, once she reached that school, Carlisle Indian School, once she reached that boarding school, her experience was absolutely traumatic. She understood that the nuns over there, the people who were governing the school, treated these children like animals. Their own identity was completely squished, it was finished. She had certain very traumatic experiences, which she puts in her autobiography. One of the severe ones was cutting off her long hair. Now, what happens is every community, every culture, they have different set of principles and different set of ethics, values. Now, in their community, long hair was the done thing. Shingled hair, it's a particular hairstyle where your hair is cut very close to the nape of your neck, very short hair like that. It was only meant for cowards, those who could not fight very well in battle. Their hair would be shingled like that. Not for the It was meant for mourners, those who are, mourning somebody's death. It was not meant for normal. They were not used to wearing footwear. They were bare feet, their community. They were not used to wearing stitched clothes. They used to have these robes and blankets their language is different. Everything. So she's just suddenly now put into a very foreign place where she doesn't understand the language. She doesn't understand the rules. She feels that, the dress is very inappropriate, what they're wearing. And the final straw which breaks her back is when they forcefully cut her long braided hair. Now she says, initially, we'll read this, her friend comes to her and she says that I've overheard someone saying that they're going to cut our hair. And we can't do anything much about it because they are very strong. They are authority. And at that moment, her first reaction is no, that I will have my own say, that I will not allow them to cut my hair, so that little spirit of independence that you have. She says that. And then she tries to avoid that in whatever way she can. So she goes, she runs, she hides, she in fact hides under the bed. They pull her out from there, they tie her to a chair, put her on a chair, and they just pick up a plait and cut it with a scissor like that. And with that, it seemed to just break her. She was like, she felt, she's written, her feelings are like she's feeling like she's a rag doll, and she feels like all of them are like animals. Their individuality is pretty much gone, and they've been treated like animals, literally. Certain sentences and certain words. The first day in the land of apples, because that's how it was projected. This is Dakota. They're talking about this American landscape which has apples. First day was bitter cold one. For the snow still covered the ground, trees were bare. A large bell rang for breakfast, its loud metallic voice crashing through the belfry overhead and into our sensitive ears. So you've seen church bells for ringing. There's a typical structure in the building on top in which the bell is hung in there. So that's the belfry. So She just says that it's all very alien to her. It's a cold place. And for breakfast, there was a bell that was ringing. Annoying clatter of shoes on bare floors gave us no peace because, like I said, they were mostly barefoot. So the shoes, that noise, the constant clash of harsh noises with the undercurrent of many voices murmuring an unknown tongue made a bedlam within which I was securely tied. So, if you just breaking the paragraph into points, the first one is bitter cold. These are all words which are painting a kind of a grey picture for us. Bitter cold. Second, there is a voice crashing through the belfry. It's just not ringing, it's not a pleasant word. So, the voice is crashing. Annoying clatter. Look at the adjectives that have been used. Annoying clatter of shoes on bare floors, also telling us that how alien that was for her. And then the clash of harsh noises. Clash of harsh noises, but what are the harsh noises? All these various languages, the undercurrents. What are undercurrents? When there's a stillness on the surface of water, but there's a lot of current underneath. That's undercurrent. So here, a lot of voices, they're murmuring, unknown language, unknown tongue. And that is creating a bedlam. Bedlam is confusion, uproar. We had read for Kushwant Singh in A Portrait of a Lady that a veritable bedlam of chirrupings, all the birds together, making a sound, making a noise. So a lot of confusion. And in that confusion, she was just completely tied down. Though my spirit tore itself in struggling for its lost freedom, all was useless. So she's just there in that boarding school, and of course, her inside, her spiritually, she wants to just struggle and come out of that binding. What is tying her down? All these various sounds and noises, the foreign. Imagine yourself, you're a foreigner, whatever community. You come to a completely strange place, and there's a lot of harsh noises, a lot of sounds, a lot of things you don't understand, and you're completely at a loss. You want to break free, but of course, it's all useless, right? Para 2, a pale faced woman with white hair came up after us. We were placed in a line of girls who were marching into the dining room. As you know, most of the hostels and boardings, you have to have these kind of particular, there are these rules and all that. So people are just marching into the dining room. These were Indian girls, native Indian girls, right? In stiff shoes and closely clinging dresses. The small girls wore sleeved aprons and shingled hair. Like I said, shingle, it's a particular hairstyle. You can check it on the images in Google. You'll get that hairstyle. Typical 1920s, actually. Very close to the nape of your neck. So these are girls, Indian girls, and they're looking very stiff and uncomfortable because they're in shoes. And of course, their hair is shingled. As I walked noiselessly in my soft moccasins. She still doesn't have those clattering shoes. She's got her own. What are these moccasins? Mostly they would be hand sewn, and these are slip-on kind of shoes, soft leather slip-on shoes. जिसे हम गुरगाबी बोलते हैं, something which you just slip into. So she's still wearing those. I felt like sinking to the floor, for my blanket had been stripped from my shoulders. So imagine if, like, for example, married Indian women who have to have a dupatta on your head, if somebody takes it away, you're still dressed and all that, but you feel semi-dressed, you feel sort of undressed. So in that, mentally, she's feeling very, very embarrassed, in fact, because her blanket has been taken away. I looked hard at the Indian girls. Looking hard here means with a lot of focus and concentration, she's looking to find that how come they don't care. They seem not to care that they were even more immodestly dressed than I. How are they even more immodestly dressed? Because they are wearing tightly fitted clothes. And in her community, these girls would wear loose garments and cover with blanket and all of that. So she's looking at these girls. Aren't they feeling embarrassed? They are wearing such tight clothes. While we marched in, the boys entered at an opposite door. I watched for the three young braves who came in our party. So collectively, when these children were brought from their villages, there were three young boys also. Young boys in their tribes are called braves. Braves, right? And then, of course, I spied them in the rear ranks, looking as uncomfortable as I felt. So she's looking for the children who had come with her, the young people who'd come with her. She caught them. I spied them, meaning I saw that they were at the back of the lines, rear ranks, back of the lines, and they were also looking very, very uncomfortable, looking as uncomfortable as I felt. A small bell was tapped. Each of the pupils drew a chair from under the table, Supposing this act meant they were to be seated, I pulled out mine and at once slipped into it from one side. But when I turned my head, I saw that I was the only one seated, and all the rest at our table remained standing. Just as I began to rise, looking shyly around to see how chairs were to be used, a second bell was sounded. All were seated at last, and I had to crawl back into my chair again. Basically, they're eating by formula. We'll see in the next on the next page, and you have to know what bell meant what. Just go through it carefully. So there's a certain signal. First bell, you just pull the chair stand. Second bell, you sit. She doesn't know. She feels people are pulling chairs. So in the first bell itself, she sits. And when the second bell happens, she's standing, everyone's sitting. So it's basically very embarrassing. You're already feeling out of place, and these things happen. All were seated. I had to crawl back into my chair again. She's standing, so she had to quietly sit. I heard a man's voice at the end of the hall, and I looked around to see him, but all the others hung their heads over their plates. Now, what they do is they pray before they eat. So that voice that she's hearing, it's that indication that start your prayers. So she is looking all around, and everyone else, of course, knows they are bending their head and they are praying. As I glanced at the long chain of tables, I caught the eyes of a pale-faced woman upon me. Immediately, I dropped my eyes, wondering why I was so keenly watched by the strange woman. The man ceased his mutterings, and then a third bell was tapped. Everyone picked up his knife and fork and began eating. I began crying instead. For by this time, I was afraid to venture anything more. Venture meaning try over here. So by the time, see, because when the man's voice was heard, she didn't know it was indication to pray. So she's looking all around. Everyone is praying. And then she finds that one woman is staring at her because she's doing all wrong things. And when the third bell rings and they're actually starting to eat, she starts to cry because by now she was so nervous and embarrassed and feeling so bad for herself. Right? But this eating by formula was not the hardest trial in the first day. Late in the morning, my friend Judwin gave me a terrible warning. Judwin knew a few words of English and she had overheard the pale-faced woman talk about cutting our long, heavy hair. Our mothers had taught us, underline and know that why short hair or cut hair was not good in their community, because Mother had taught us that only unskilled warriors who were captured had their hair shingled by the enemy. Among our people, underline, short hair was worn by mourners and shingled hair by cowards. Two reasons. So if you are mourning is a typical way of grieving over someone who's died. Your close relative, friend, whatever, someone who's died. When you grieve, that's mourning. So either you are mourning somebody or you are a coward, you're not brave enough. And of course, in their communities, strength of character is very important. To be brave and to be recognized as a brave warrior, very important. And so to just make it clear to the entire community that's not a brave warrior, they would cut their hair. So it's clear. Or if you're mourning someone. So for her, cutting off her long hair was pretty much out of the question. All right. So in the next video, we'll just take it up from there.